Space Commander.
Space Commander saves the day yet again, coming down from the upper atmosphere, full force. How are you, buddy?
Force. Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Better than was the past couple of weeks, but still a little ways to go, but we're getting there.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate. It's late in the evening for you. It's early in the morning for me. These time zones are ridiculous. I'm going to have to just come up to the space station where we can do this in the same bloody time zone. Well, I feel like we haven't done this in a while, and I thought if we're going to come back, we're going to do it in style. The thing about incoming transmissions, we always talk about things that are retro, like Palatoy Action Force, and other retro goodies. And someone that's been smashing out the retro video games lately is our good buddy, who you've dubbed Tej, and I've caught on. It's our good friend from the United Kingdom, TJC. And we also have in the wings, but we'll just let him on before he takes off. We've got Adam. So we are Commonwealth compatriots. I'm going to put myself down here. And we're going to put TJC at the top. Look at that. Look at those. Look at those two. United in the kingdom, united in full force. TJC, welcome back to the channel. Incoming Transmission is always happy to have you on. The last time we saw you on Incoming Transmission, you guys had actually hung out in person.
Yeah.
For the Palatoy event.
Yeah. And met Bob Breakin as well at the same time. The legend himself.
Did you tell Bob Breakin that you got Space Commander's autograph?
Didn't want to really sort of put him down. He might get a bit jealous, you know.
Yeah. So TJC, we're gonna get into the meat and potatoes of your channel shortly, but we'll just quickly say hello to the people in the chat. There's quite a bit of conversation here to go back to. We got, give me one moment. Oh, channel member David. How are you, buddy? Full force. Stealthy boy himself, the RetroTinker.
What a beauty.
Full force. We'll give a full force and a thumb kiss to Gazz. Full force. Largo's Lair, how are you, Jimbo? Full force to you and Scuba Pete as well. How are you, champ?
There he is.
Full force to you. Pulling double duty from the peppermint oil capsule. We got Dale, full force. Hello, everybody. I know this is Space Commander, but it feels like the Avengers music. Ooh.
I want to say, you know what? I've watched a lot of incoming transmissions, and the theme songs always reminded me of something that I couldn't put my finger on, and I realized why today. It reminds me of the experience of watching a sci-fi movie that I had no idea was going to happen. Like when you go to the VHS store when you were a kid and you're like, I'm going to watch Logan's Run, and I have no idea what it's about. So it has that very 70s, early 80s feel to it, but I'm like, but I don't know what it's for, but I know it's going to be good.
Well, let me tell you, me and Space Commander also don't know what's going on.
That makes four of us.
70s, early 80s is very much on brand, shall we say.
Yeah, I agree. Full force to Will. How are you?
Well,
good to see you, buddy. Radical Toys. Full force to you. Toy Mama. Full force. And, we'll say evening, afternoon, and morning all to Mrs. Space Commander. Rolando. Full force to you, buddy. Pains Toy Samples. Full force to you, bud. And I think have I scoured everyone? Everyone just keeps jumping in the chat. Good to see everyone. Good to see everyone. Don't forget to hit that like button. And while you're hitting that like button, don't forget in the description of this live stream is the link to this epic channel, TJC's Toy Memories. So if you want to subscribe to a really epic channel, this guy above me, please do check it out. He's nailing it with the shorts videos. He picks little clips that are hilarious, or well, in my opinion, they're hilarious. I don't know if we can measure my sense of humor, but I'm loving it. TJC, why don't you tell us a bit about your channel and what you're trying to do over there? What you are doing over there. You're not trying to do it, you're succeeding, mate.
Well, I'm trying. Autistic. Well, it's just a place for everyone to gather, just relive the memories of the arcade. Because obviously, as you know, and as we were growing up, the arcade was a social outlet for all of us, wasn't it? That was just everywhere you all used to hang out, get together with your mates, and play the obviously best games or whatever together, and take turns. If someone was better than you, they'd probably do a bit for you. Then you'd swap back over, that sort of stuff. It was just a social hub, wasn't it? Basically.
Yeah,
it's true.
So this whole idea was obviously brought on by you guys, really. Obviously, you sort of brought me to the idea of doing something similar. So I just thought if I start something like this, play a few games, maybe get a few people on, relive their toy memories, and just get people together. It's all about being a community, getting together, having a good laugh, bit of fun. That's all it's about.
This guy gets it.
TJC, your channel is the modern equivalent of standing behind your buddy while he's trying to get the highest score on the local arcade.
I'm so glad you said getting the high score on the local arcade then. I was worried where you were going with that, but
Now, when you guys did the arcade as a kid, did you take your quarter or coin or whatever it was and put it on the game to claim next?
Yeah, that was the thing.
You used to have to do that in some arcades. Yeah, you used to have to put your name, same as you did on a pool table. That was always put your 50 pence down.
I just thought they were free coins for a while. I didn't know that they were. It was like, ooh, free coin.
Did you
Nobody
get
else
kicked out of a lot of arcades, Hazel, for stealing people's money? Or
Well, I'd never walk out with the coins. You just put them in the machine. It's not stealing unless you walk out with it, right?
Yeah, very true. But yeah, definitely like that.
Did you have a favorite arcade game you'll go to, Tej?
Well, like I said to you before, when I was on Friday nights, we'd have sort of like just a bit of a fish and chip night sort of for tea, because that used to be the day the parents used to go get the groceries. So in the fish and chip shop, while we were waiting for them to obviously dish up the chips, they had a Defender cabinet in there, which me and my brother would take turns on. So can't beat Defender, could you? That was always a classic.
Yeah.
That and Donkey Kong.
How are you, Gap? Full force.
Gap. Yeah, so that was all them sort of classic games like Donkey Kong, Defender.
Yeah.
So
we
like that.
all four of us, I think, were at the perfect age where we were thrust in. Sorry, Tej. We were in the thick of it. We were in the thick of it for the console war. So in Australia, we had the Nintendo versus Sega. We call it the Sega Mega Drive here. Adam probably knows it as a Sega Genesis.
Correct.
But the console wars, Nintendo versus Sega. Where did you guys sit in that war?
I was Sega Genesis for two reasons. One was Golden Axe. You couldn't get that on Super Nintendo. And it was for a He-Man fan. That was the best game to play. Loved Golden Axe. And two, when the first Mortal Kombat came out, you could have blood on Genesis and you couldn't on Super Nintendo.
That's
right?
True, yeah. Very true.
Too true.
Yeah, I think my first console that I had, I had computers obviously as a kid, and obviously didn't used to use them a lot because you were always outside. But obviously, when you had bad weather days, you'd be on your computer, obviously with your friends and stuff. So I had the Spectrum and the Commodore 64, Commodore Amiga. But then my first console I actually bought was the Sega Master System.
Oh yes, yep.
And obviously Operation Wolf. Remember that? And obviously the light gun game.
I do remember. Yes,
There we go. There he is.
Oh, hang on. I'm gonna put you on solo there, Space Commander, so we can get a good look at that.
Oh, it's a demo, but this is one of those free cassette. Okay, if there's any youngsters watching, this is a cassette tape. This is what your game is stored on this magnetic tape here.
I think, Space Commander, you need to demonstrate what we had to do with a certain pen sometimes when it used to get a little bit tangled.
Yeah, if the magnetic tape came off the spool and was all dangling out the bottom here, you'd have to feed a pen or a pencil through the middle of the spool and wind it on to draw the tape back up inside the cassette.
And hope that it didn't bend.
I hope that it didn't bend,
Yeah.
Sometimes the tape would twist, you'd have to draw it all out again and
start
unravel
again,
it and put it back in.
This does not sound like we're talking about retro games.
Oh, just part of the struggles, Hazel. Come on.
Yeah. You used to get these like magazines with like a free. This was I think this was a demo of Operation Wolf, and then a couple of extra games on it. So you could get these free cassettes, free games with a magazine based on whatever computer or console you were using.
I never had a game that I put cassette tapes in.
Yeah, the Commodore 64 had cassettes, cartridges, and discs.
Yeah,
you could use. Now we bought our Commodore 64 secondhand, and so it came with like hundreds of discs with like pirated games. Yeah. I remember being 8, 9 years old. You put into games. I used to play like Spy Hunter a lot, and they'd say Spy Hunter cracked by like Richard Hack, like some name. And I'm like, I don't know who that guy is, but he was smart enough to crack this game so I could have it for free. That guy's a legend. I just remember thinking, like, these guys are going to be world famous one day.
I think I got my Commodore 64 secondhand as well, and I had the action replay cartridge in the back of it.
Yeah,
and if you used to get a new game on cassette, you used to load it up on cassette once. And press a button on the action replay cartridge that you just used to go into then a menu, and then you used to save it to floppy disk, so it then loaded up in seconds afterwards. So you didn't ever have to load it on tape ever again. So always handy.
I found out something the other day that I didn't ever know as a child, and it is how we were able to get because we had both Nintendo and Sega in the house. We had both. You still had to pick one. Which one was your favorite in the console war? Even if you had both, you still had to pick one. But we had, I can't remember which one this one relates to, whether it's the Nintendo or the Sega. I was drinking beers when I heard this story. But my brother tells it like this, right? We had one. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we already had Nintendo, right? Now, the way we got the Sega was, Mum, there was an offer where if you got the Encyclopedia Britannica set, the Encyclopedia Britannica set, that they would give you a free console. And so Mum ordered up the
Hey guys, I gotta peace out. My leaders are showing up, but TJC, you're doing a great job on your channel. You keep it up, buddies. And if anybody's watching, subscribe to his channel, because that guy is, well, he's the best, but also his channel is fantastic. So you guys have a great night.
Thank you, Adam.
See you, buddy. What a cool dude. Anyway, so we got the second console because Mum ordered up some encyclopedias. So we had useless encyclopedias, but a couple of.
Did you ever use the encyclopedias, or they just sit on a shelf?
Nothing would upset me more than if I ever had a question. Right? If I ever had a question and I just wanted a very quick answer to, they would say, "Go to the encyclopedia, look it up, find out." I was like, yeah. So there were moments where I did go.
If there are any kids watching, encyclopedias are what we had before the internet.
Right.
That was a book version of Google.
You could get paper cuts from this version of Google.
See, my parents had got some encyclopedias that it was like a subscription sort of service.
Oh, Scuba had the Commodore 128. Cool. That's
they'd only got the encyclopedias up to letter H. I think it was H or I. So being a very studious kid, I would refer to the encyclopedia quite often, but only ever partially into the alphabet before we ran out of volumes. It was like they gave up on it halfway through.
So you had
Space Commander. I hope we're not going to start an argument here with your Mr. Space Commander's comment here. We're not going to get no arguments, are we?
Oh, what's she saying? Let's have a look. It was always Nintendo for me. Had a NES, SNES, had a bit of a hiatus, an N64, but then had a GameCube. Don't know what any of that is. The So yeah, when as you say, when the console wars kicked off, we had a friend who had the Atari 2600, and he would bring it around. We'd play that, and then eventually we got a Commodore 64.
Morning,
But
bud.
then when the console wars all kicked off, and it was like Nintendo and Sega, our parents, their attitude was, "You've already got a computer. You don't need another one." Yeah, but there's this new system. No, you've got one. Yeah, but there are these new games. You've got games. So the whole Nintendo and Sega and all that stuff, I kind of missed out on that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I did actually get the consoles myself. That was something I bought with my own money, really, the consoles. But
Right.
The computer, we got a computer between me and my brother when we were sort of younger. I think the first one we got was a Commodore 16.
Wow.
And that went wrong after a little while, and then they replaced it with a Spectrum 128 plus 2 with the one with the built-in tape on the side.
Oh yeah.
And so we had that for a while, and I used to be sitting there typing out programs that would probably do one sound and put a line on the screen, and it was about 300 lines of code. And then really basic stuff, but you're sitting there thinking that was going to be amazing just by the little pitch they'd put saying this is a racing game or something that'd do next to nothing, but you thought that was amazing at the time. And then I then after that got the Commodore 64 and then the Commodore Amiga, and then that was on the consoles. So
I gotta say, I don't know about you guys, right? But technology. So you've got modern technology now, right? I am less fascinated with modern technology like we're using now. I'm less fascinated by that, but extremely fascinated how cassette tapes and records and those sort of things worked, right? Like, how did they figure that out? That's what I want to know. Computers, I was like, whatever. But cassette tapes, how do you come up with that? Genius. Floppy disks, what?
Yeah, a lot of advances these days are based around whatever programming there is, whatever's been coded, and I'm not belittling that. Obviously, it takes a lot of research and intelligence to come up with these programs. But my generation grew up with stuff that was physical. You had to physically figure out how to make the thing, like you say, a vinyl album or whatever.
I like vinyl. You don't know whether they're talking music or pop.
Let's be honest. Nowadays, if something plays up, you don't hit it, do you? See, they don't understand that now because we used to hit things.
We used to blow
play up. Used to whack the side of the TV. There you go, fixed it. Yeah, that's just how it went.
Give it a whack, give it a blow.
Yeah. Take the cartridge out the back. Take the cartridge out the back and check it for fluff.
Give it a blow, put
it back in.
I know it happened. That played. There you go.
Yeah, it'll be perfectly all right then.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfectly fine. So we've got Gab's asking the collection behind me. He's never seen it before. This is my brother's collection. I'm just using it as. Also has a couple up behind me. He's got a couple of New Kids on the Block dolls wearing the helmets from what do you guys call them? Battle of the Planets. But they were also known as
Gotcha, man.
G-Force.
G-Force. Yeah.
G-Force.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my box sets in my collection, Battle of the Planets. So
yeah, that was that. I remember as a kid because even back then I was a mega nerd. Okay, I had seen that I watched Battle of the Planets as it was, and the credits at the end. I was the kid who would read the credits. I know, right? So at the end it would say like copyright 1975 or 1976, something like that, because that was when the original series was produced in Japan. What I couldn't understand was when you had the character of 7 Zark 7, he was clearly meant to be a crossover of C-3PO and R2-D2 from Star Wars, which I very well knew was 1977. So as a kid, I was confused by this. I was thinking, how can this show have been produced before Star Wars, and yet here's the character who's very clearly lifted from Star Wars?
Right.
It wasn't until I was older that I discovered that all the 7 Zark 7 stuff had been edited into the Japanese show by the Americans in place of all the violent scenes
Right.
the Americans taking out of the Japanese show. So the show predated Star Wars, but those scenes came after Star Wars. They had to take out all the blood and guts. And there's one episode where is it Mark? I think it was Mark.
Mark's the lady.
He punches some little girl in the belly and knocks her out. Man, you couldn't get away with that now.
The thing was,
No.
I watched Battle of the Planets, so I think because obviously my older brother, he would have watched it when it was first on. But obviously, I watched it when it came back for the second run, sort of thing. So obviously, as I was obviously a little bit younger than him. But when I watched it, that was when they brought the toys out for it from what is it, Popey?
Yeah,
Popey had all the tank and the Phoenix and all that sort of stuff. I got a few of them in the loft as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I actually got them. I was that much into it at the time. But yeah, I've definitely got that box set as a classic. Woodman.
Woodman's it.
And G-Force.
G-Force, how are you, bud? So, and Mike and Aussie, fellow Aussie. How are you, mate?
Oi.
Oh, cheers. Honorary Aussie over here. Speaking of retro things, that you're showing off your, I don't know if you've seen this yet, Space Commander, and I got the VHS copy of The Young and the Wrestlers from RetroTinker. And while we were showing off cassette tapes, kids, this is a VHS. Be Kind Rewind. Someone's already partway through this one. But if this came out, well, you needed a bigger pencil. Much bigger pencil. Oh, we got Pericles in the chat too. How are you, Pericles?
Pericles.
I'm convinced that this guy is the modern equivalent of Google. So I reckon it went from the Encyclopedia Britannica, Google, Pericles.
Pericles. There you
That's
go.
the evolution of information right there.
He knows everything.
Yep. But he does it in a way that isn't cocky. We all know those people that think they know everything.
Oh, yeah. Say nothing.
We do.
Frostbite. Check it out. Throwing a tenner our way. All right, next round's on me, fellas. Thank you very much, buddy. I super appreciate it. You definitely should be checking out Frostbite's G.I. Joe Repro. Another fellow Aussie compatriot talking things over on his channel with a trio of Aussies. And I actually had the I want to say fortunate, but I walked away feeling a little unfortunate chance to actually hang out and have a feast. If you could remind me what that place was called, Lenny, that would be cool. But yeah, he and I went together and had a lot of food, and I was like, at one point, they keep bringing out this food. I can't remember what the name of the restaurant was called. But they bring out this food and they slice the meats and stuff at your table, and then they just keep coming back around until you're full. And at one point, I'm like, oh, I think I'm stuffed, and he's like, pussy, keep going, you've got this. But thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, bud.
A big hello to Mr. Scuba Pete is in the chat now.
Sup, my dudes.
Yes, she is.
Now, here's someone that would also, if we were ever out drinking together, I guarantee you she would outdrink me and also call me a pussy for piking. She knows how to have a drink and a good time. Imagine having both Scubas in the house.
But also, I had the pleasure of that, drinking with those two.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Both Scubas in the toy shop.
Both Scubas in the toy shop. There wasn't much of a toy shop left after they'd finished, but that was all good.
He's all supportive now, but at the time he was looking down at me going, eat it, you pussy. One more slice. No, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Lots of legends in the chat today.
Yep.
Now I can eat. You're wrong, I can eat. But after a while, I was like, oh, I need to stop. I could barely walk. I was like, okay, I'm just going to waddle back now. Great stuff. Oh, I think this must be the name of it. Oops, I missed it. The jump. It jumped. Navala could be the place, unless I'm mistaken, that he's saying that's the name of the place we went to. Intestinal distress seems to be my middle name these days.
Oh, you're not going to let that one down for a while, Zazel, are you?
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Navala Churrascaria. Check it out. Man, so many cool people. If you are jumping in onto this incoming transmission live stream, do please hit that like button. But also, more importantly than that, do subscribe to this epic channel, TJC. I should refresh it. TJC, tell us what you've got coming up, because you've got a lot of games that I've never seen before or played before, which is one of the great things about your channel, is that I can look at these games with new fresh eyes. I was like, oh, okay, I want to know what this game's about.
I think because what I'm trying not to do, if you see what I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but a lot of people just go for the big favorites of like what everyone remembers and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to go through the ones that I played on as I went through. So there might be some different ones in there what people don't know. Obviously, I did Gears of War the other day, which everyone remembers that. But
right,
I am trying to throw in the 3 retro games in there what I may have had. Obviously, when I did, I was a bit younger, and obviously then just throw them in there, see if anyone remembers them. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Ken? But yeah.
So your Gears of War, because I played Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. I tried to play the others that came after. I played one more that came after it, and then after that, I couldn't finish the next one because I was like, oh, this is diminishing returns on Gears of War. However, the first 3 Gears of War is actually part of the reason why we got this tattoo, is because we played that. We played the first one, loved it. Played all the way through the end. Super looking forward to the second and onwards into the third one. So good memories with Gears of War, and it was really cool to see some of those scenes revisited again, thanks to the power of TJC's Toy Memories channel.
Well, that will continue on Monday nights. I'm going to do that for Monday nights now because I'm obviously on Gears of War 2 now. So I'll carry that on Monday nights and then till finish that, and then obviously do number 3, because I was the same as you. I didn't think I played 4, or if I did, I didn't play maybe much of it. So the first 3 for me were the ones on that.
But there was a game that came out for Gears of War that was to do with the character of Baird, right? And Coltrane. That one was okay. If my memory. Sorry?
Gears of War Tactics?
That must be it. I thought that one was okay because it sort of it was still sort of within the same sort of time frame.
I didn't think I played that one either.
I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first 3, and then the 4th one I got partway through, and by was it Judgment? Is that what it is? Gears of War Judgment? Is that the one we're talking about? So Gears of War, the 4th one though, it was like, okay, now the politics that we have to deal with in today's society starts to creep into Gears of War now. And I was like, I'm out.
Games are supposed to be fun.
That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's all about fun. Just to take your mind off things and shoot things.
And escape from all this. I'm trying not to swear because I'm supposed to be a kid-friendly action figure.
True.
I'm supposed to be this little guy here, but BS. Let's say BS. You play these games to get away from the BS of the modern day. You know,
right?
At least that's what we did back in the 80s.
Yeah,
old school.
Yeah, where we could just punch people's spleens out.
Yeah.
I mean, were you familiar with the other game we played the other week, Zazel, The Darkness?
Nope. Oh no, I was familiar. I knew it was like a comic book.
Yeah.
But I never played the game. I never played that. So these are the reasons that your channel is really valuable to me, is because I get to. I don't have a lot of the old consoles, but I remember seeing back in the day, I remember seeing covers to these, and very often you'd have to make a choice, and sometimes you pick a safer choice because you're like, oh, I know this property, so you go for that, and you put something aside where you're like, oh man, I wish. But that's one of those occasions where I was like, oh, I've never really had an opportunity to check out this game, and it was like The Punisher meets Venom, where it was just like murder and mayhem and also stretchy limbs. I was like, okay, all right, maybe I would have gotten into that.
Well, they did 2 of them. They had 2 Darkness games, but the first one,
and then they created a band.
I don't think they want to be linked to that. No, come on,
it's not the same. Oh, okay.
They're from our neck of the woods as well.
Yeah, so the second one wasn't quite as dark, if excuse the pun, but it wasn't quite as dark. The first one was more to the comic. And then obviously, I think later they might have toned it down a bit on the second one, but the second one was still a good game. So I might play that at a later date.
So Mr. Space Commander says the only Darkness I know is an amazing band from Lowestoft.
Yeah,
Lowestoft.
Well, my dad is from Lowestoft, which is right next to where TJC is. So in my dad's accent, it would be Lowestoft. Lowestoft, buh.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I believe in a thing called that.
Yeah. But you know, we had stretchy limbs back in the 80s as well.
Bionic Commandos.
Yeah.
Right. While you're at it, Space Commander, why don't you ruffle through those cassettes and show us which ones you've got?
Okay. Well, most of my old Commodore games are down on planet Earth at my parents' place. So I just grabbed a few right before the live stream. This is my lifestyle. This is how organized I am. So I just grabbed a bunch of stuff out of storage. And some of these are mine, some of these are my brother's. So some of them I'm not familiar with. But some of them I'm quite familiar with. Let's have a look. Here we go. This is on the Commodore 64 Street Fighter.
I'm going to solo you for a sec.
Okay.
Whoop, whoop.
Street Fighter. Not Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter Alpha or Street Fighter anything else. Just Street Fighter, the first one. And
that's cool.
Loved that game.
Yeah.
We actually got when the whole control thing. There you go.
How are you? All fours.
We actually bought a handset, like a Sega handset, because it had the same connection that the Commodore had. So we could plug this Sega handset into the Commodore and play it as though it was a console game. Because most games were joystick, of course, in those days. Transformers.
What? That's cool. That's absolutely more than meets the eye.
That is. I adored this game. I played the hell out of it.
You know what would be a good companion to that? Would be the movie soundtrack on cassette.
I have the movie soundtrack on cassette.
Excellent.
But this did come with a pretty good soundtrack of its own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
It played the theme from the cartoon.
Yeah.
But then it would kind of go off on its own, go off on a tangent, and it was because the Commodore was really advanced in terms of sound because it had a SID chip, which it was a more complex sound chip than any of the other 8-bit machines. So it would have it would have the Transformers theme tune, then it would kind of go off on its own little tangent, and it would go into this really kind of intricate and pretty realistic sounding guitar solo, which was just incredible, especially being a rock kid, you know. And then it would eventually work its way back into the theme tune from the TV series. Another game with a really good theme tune. Hong Kong Fu.
Oh, nice. That's the #1 super guy.
He is. There's some pictures on the back of the game. There's a lot of ones here which are like TV or movie or action figure tie-in.
Oh, yeah. There's only 3 Ghostbusters.
Yeah, there was a lot of the promotional art for the first film just had those 3 guys.
Yeah.
And I think they sort of corrected that. By the time you got to the Ghostbusters 2, there was more of an effort to include Winston, Winston was actually my favorite of the four.
Yeah.
They brought in it, so you got more representation of Ernie Hudson there. Talking of great soundtracks, this is Tomcat. Look at the price, £1.99.
Bargain.
Oh, gee,
£1.99, and this game was incredible. I think the music on this was done by a guy. I think his name is Jerome Tell, and somebody has been kind enough to put the soundtrack from this on YouTube. You can look it up. On the inlay card, it just says Tomcat. When you load the game, it actually says something like Tomcat F-14 Simulator. It's not actually a simulator; it's a shoot 'em up. But the music on here is incredible. If you look it up, Jerome Tell F-14 Tomcat on the C64, you'll see what I mean by the sort of multi-layered music and the fact that they could like really emulate a guitar solo and stuff like that.
That is cool.
Oh, here's another one. This was actually one of my brother's ones, 720, which was like
I love that game.
A skateboarding game. And it's all set in a skate park where you got half pipes and quarter pipes and berms and things like that. And there's this one moment in the game called every now and then it'll crop up this section of the game called Skate or Die. That's when a load of killer bees invade.
Killer bees coming after you.
Park. Right. And if you don't skate your behind off, then they'll get you. So let's have a look. We've got some other choice ones over here. Some of the cassette games would come in these huge boxes.
Yeah, some of the adventure games especially used to come in the bigger boxes.
Yeah,
because they had to put the instructions in them so you know how to play them.
Yeah, so although there's only one cassette in there, it's in this huge box.
Before there was CDs, they're putting cassette tapes in them.
Barbarian 2, how about that?
That's what I look like when I take my shirt off too.
Well, we
have you got a picture stuck on your mirror?
All right.
The first Barbarian game, it had the same guy on the front, but it also had one of the page 3 girls dressed up as a
warrior princess or something, wasn't she?
Yeah, like a Valkyrie or something. She was on the front cover.
Yeah.
Cool. Zazel, are you aware of page 3 girls, Zazel?
Aware of what girls?
Page 3 girls.
Page 3 girls.
Yeah.
In the paper, you used to have page 3 where you used to have girls on.
Are they the sticky pages?
Yeah, the tabloid newspapers used to have on the as you open the newspaper, the first page inside was page 3, and there would normally, back in those days, be a picture of a topless young woman in your daily newspaper.
What?
Yeah, and although there was like a campaign a few years ago to get page 3, just defunct, taken out of newspapers. But a lot of young girls had said that they had planned that was going to be their career choice. They had decided that this is something that they wanted to do. They thought it was like a liberating sort of thing. Now, I'm not, arguing for or against. I'm just reporting that some of these girls were very disappointed when it was taken out of the newspapers, because as far as they were concerned, that was their ticket to fame and fortune, and it had been taken away from them by their fellow ladies, But anyway, there was a page girl on the front of this team.
Were they topless, is what I'm asking. In the local news. In the local news.
No, national news.
That was the national newspaper.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm disappointed with the world today. Apparently we had it in the Sun. We had the page 3 girls in the Sun. But I guess I've never been accused of being too young before, but I'm almost certain that this must be the case.
Yeah, I'm sorry to go off on a bit of a tangent, but for some people that was if you didn't like it, that's fine. You don't look at it, don't buy the paper or whatever. But for some people, that was their that was going to be a career choice for them. My career choice was to be a science fiction hero like this guy.
Yes, RoboCop.
No, that was a difficult game.
He's fighting crime in a future
that
time.
was relentless. That was that game.
Yeah.
When it was cops.
We got I saw a playthrough on YouTube because we always got me and my brothers. We always got right to the end where you have to fight Ed 209. I didn't want to fight Ed 209. I thought he was cool, but anyway, you have to fight Ed 209, and there was some function you had to do with the joystick to do the correct attack to fight him, and we couldn't get it to work. And we thought that there was like a bug in the program or a flaw or something, so we would get to that point and then turn it off because we couldn't go any further. Having watched the playthrough on YouTube, that's pretty much the end of the game. You know, if only we'd known just how to do this one final part, that's the end of the game, and we would have completed it. But, you know, we didn't know.
Yeah, I've got a similar story myself. First of all, full force to your boy and Skyfall, full force. And keep on collecting. Channel member throwing up the Spacies and the Sarge emojis. If you guys want to be able to use these emojis, we can't see them on the screen, but you can see them in the chat. If you want to use these Spacey or Sarge emojis, all you got to do is become a channel member. So thank you to all my channel members.
Just for the youngsters nowadays who don't see the pain of playing games when we were kids, you see this joypad here? You have two buttons, which, let's be honest, at that time you were spoiled for two buttons.
You were spoiled with two, yeah.
But to jump on most games on the Commodore, you had to press up. So that trying to play them now gets tedious. You saw the Batman incident, Zazel.
Yes. Yeah. That was gonna. So
trying to go back to that time, saying, "Oh, hang on, have I got a jump button?" No, you got to press up. That was So that was that gets a bit tricky at times. I mean, I think my nephews, who are now the older two of them, they're 18. They came down once, and I set up the Commodore 64, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, you think you're good at games? Let's see if you can do any of these." I think they lasted about 6.5 minutes. And that was just like, I can't play that anymore. That's too difficult. I can't play that.
Yeah, it took genuine skill, and they ended up. So if I could just get my words out, so Space Commander, you reminded me of a story I wanted to tell anyway, which was the X-Men game on the Sega. I believe it was the Sega Mega Drive, and partway through the game. In this X-Men game, Magneto does something that interrupts your console, and it looks like you've been given a virus or whatever, and nothing you do does anything to the game. Right? You can't. It's like a frozen screen. You can't do anything with it, and no button you press or nothing. It doesn't fix your frozen screen. So whenever we got to that part, we would turn off the game and just play a different game. Right? We'd play it up until that point. Now one day. As we were playing that game again, instead of turning it off and taking the cartridge out, I hit the reset button, and I was like, bugger it, I'll just reset and start the game from scratch. And that's what you had to do to continue the game, is you had to hit the reset button. And apparently some parents had gotten together. Now, I might be wrong in this story, but what I heard was some parents got together and thought how fun it would be for kids to be challenged mentally by putting these sort of tricky things in your game to make it feel like, oh, I've accomplished something. But I didn't feel accomplished. I felt like, how many times have I turned this bloody game off? It was not a success. I finished the game eventually thanks to that. But
I mean, obviously you're coming forward a bit, but do you remember they did that with the Metal Gear with the memory cards?
No.
Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation. That actually used to, one of the characters come out, and that used to actually read the data off your memory card. So basically, I'd then take something off your game or something. You had to try and put it into a different slot or something. There was something silly you had to do to stop him being able to do it. That was just something that was in court. That was quite clever at the time, but obviously
now that's clever. But how did you figure out how to do that? Did you have to figure it out yourself?
Well, no, I think that was something along. I think I told you clues in the game, if I remember. I haven't played it for so long, I can't remember. They did give you clues and saying, "Oh, you need to stop him being able to read your data or something like that." And I think you had to take it out and put it into another slot, something along them lines. I can't remember exactly. I am going to revisit the Metal Gear games because they've now just released them again on the PlayStation. So I probably will get that and play through them at some point as well. So
by the time, oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, it would taunt you based on how many times you would save your progress. There you go.
Wow.
To imagine that, it's like, oh, hello there. If it regularly saved it, it would say you were a safe person. If you hardly saved, it would say you were reckless.
yeah. There you go.
The place when the PlayStation came along, I went from N64. So I had the Nintendo 64. I think some of the last games I got for Nintendo 64 were Star Wars based.
What,
I remember
Rogue Squadron?
Rogue Squadron. Brendan, how are you, bud?
Brandon?
Full force. But when speaking of Star Wars, when Shadows of the Empire came out, that was a huge event. It had everything except a movie. So it had comics, it had toys, it had a soundtrack, a book, and the video game. And the video game took place between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And so it was like getting it. Go ahead, Spacey.
I was just going to say, can we all remember a time when Star Wars was just incredible? I mean, the creme de la creme, wasn't it?
Yeah,
perfect.
And here it comes.
Along comes Disney, and now it's
ruined. There you go.
Completely ruined.
We need to do a segment. No. It's true. It is absolutely true. And I'm almost certain that this was before they brought out these special editions too. So they hadn't really messed around with the original trilogy yet. You didn't really have a lot to go with, and so this was for us kids. Oh, Kimberly's in the house.
Kimberly.
Full force.
Yeah, the story in the novel was different to the story in the comic, and slightly different from the story in the game. I didn't realize this because I had the comic, and it wasn't until I got the novel and in fact the audiobook. I got the audiobook as well, that I discovered that actually the stories complement each other. It's not the same story. So to get the full effect of Shadows of the Empire, you had to collect everything.
Yeah,
but it was a big multimedia event. It was George Lucas. He was testing the water to see if the audience was receptive to new Star Wars content. So that project came out before the special editions and before the prequel trilogy. He was like testing the water.
So I went from Nintendo 64, and then I don't think I had a console again until.
Did you, when you got Rogue Squadron those days, did you buy the memory upgrade with it?
No, I didn't have it. No.
They had a little used to have detachable sort of like little lid on the front. You used to take that out, and you used to get with Rogue Squadron, if you wanted it to, you could actually have a further draw distance on the graphics. You put an extra sort of boost memory sort of cartridge in. So you popped the original out and put this boosted one in. And that actually had a bit of a draw distance. Because if you remember when they had the first Turok game, they said, oh, look at the atmosphere, this, that, and the other. Basically, that was because they couldn't draw the graphics any further and it looked like it was foggy.
Oh, okay.
So basically, then they released this memory upgrade so that had actually more draw distance. So then when you played Rogue Squadron, you actually bought it and then you got that with it. I think they did a pack with it in, and then you could just put that in there.
I don't recall having the extra cartridge topper or whatever extender not battery. Imagine if it was battery memory. But I think the last game that I had that was Star Wars related was the Pod Racer.
Pod Racer Episode 1, yeah.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that game. That was good fun, just a good fun racing game. I really enjoyed it.
I think Star Wars was a really big part of sort of my video gaming sort of experience growing up.
I love TIE.
Yeah. Well, as like I was saying earlier, we kind of missed out on the whole console wars, Nintendo versus Sega and all that sort of business. But our friend who used to bring around his Atari 2600, we would play Empire Strikes Back on that. And it was different to the arcade game. It was like a you'd see a landscape of Hoth, and you'd have to like land your little snow speeder in Echo Base to refuel, and then go and attack the AT-ATs and try and get between the legs and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Fair comment, Gazz.
What's Gazz saying? I actually think I ruined Stars for myself. Yeah.
How did you do that? How did you ruin it for yourself?
But with arcades, with TJC living near the coast, a lot of the arcades in the UK are on the coast. And where I grew up, we were like 70 miles inland. So the only time we ever really got to go to an arcade is whenever we went to the seaside. And I found that the Star Wars arcade, the original Star Wars arcade game, where it was like the pixel graphics, graphics, and you're flying through the Death Star trench.
Yeah.
And I loved that because of as a kid, the vector graphics looked similar to what was on Luke's targeting scope in the X-wing. So you could you could really imagine you were in the adventure. And I think this is what part of the problem with modern Star Wars. It's just there's no depth to it at all. And with those original films, it was almost like, in a way, it was kind of like George has kind of created a sort of a prefabricated, manufactured religion in a way. It felt like almost a religious experience. Not to belittle any actual religion. We knew it was fiction. If you buy the book of Star Wars, it says on the spine science fiction, so we knew it was fiction. But you still had religion.
I've got a new religion now, Space Commander. It's Long Nama.
It's what?
It's Long Nama, and you need to check out last night's live stream to figure that. There's a little story that the RetroTinker Nate tells us. And he reads it from a book. He reads it story time about the coming of Long Nama, and you need to check it out. It's hilarious. It's great. I'm converted, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I will check it out. I've got it queued up to watch, but I've come straight from my day shift onto the night shift. I haven't seen it yet, but I have got it queued up to watch. But it was like you were, involved in the. That's
Stay on target.
It was like you were in that universe as if it was real, And the reason why this whole Star Cruiser experience they've tried to do out in the States failed because it doesn't feel real. Whereas back then we were looking at vector graphics in an arcade, and yet it felt absolutely real. And
especially because it had the voice samples as well from the film.
Yeah,
coming out behind you in the seat. So
Ben Kenobi, the Force will be with you. So I got that on the Commodore 64 as well. I got the cassette of it, and I found there was a bit of a glitch on in the program. If you were on the early levels, if you flew down the Death Star trench, all you had to do to avoid all of the fireballs that were launched at you is put your X-wing as low and to the right as you could, and you could fly down the trench and not get hit. And so I used to rack up a huge score by doing that each time. And then when I was a teenager, a new Star Wars arcade game had come out. I don't remember what it was called, I'm afraid, but you would sit in it. It was like a two-seater. So me and my buddy I used to hang out with, although it was based on the X-Wing, we used to call it the Y-Wing game because the Y-Wing was a two-seater ship. But this game, it wasn't vector graphics. It was like, made to look kind of cinematic. But we would find you'd be sort of flying through space. He's like controlling the direction and everything, and then I'm shooting with the guns or whatever. And suddenly I'm thinking, what's happening? Where are we going? What's going on? Because the ship we're in is suddenly diving straight at a Star Destroyer. Those, if you're not familiar with Star Wars, the Star Destroyer is a spaceship about the size of a town, and here we are in a little tiny fighter diving straight towards it. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? We're going to die, But no, you can fly through like a crack in the hull, and you can fly inside the Star Destroyer and go through like the inner workings of it. Yeah, you're flying through the engineering through the guts of the ship, and trying to hit the reactor before flying out the back of the ship and escaping while it explodes around you. And again, it was like, and as you're flying through the Star Destroyer, the whole arcade machine starts to vibrate and make a rumbling sound as you're going through the engines. It was amazing. And again, it was like it was as if you were really part of this rebellion against this empire, and you know, it was like a really kind of grounded experience. And I haven't seen anything like that since. I haven't seen anything like that since Disney.
But it was so simple. All you had to do was feel like you were immersed in your favorite movies or whatever. And
I think a lot about the old games as well, because obviously they had graphical limitations, obviously to a certain degree, and the controls were clunky and stuff. That was just how they were. But the artwork on the actual front of the game is what actually got you into the idea of what your character you're going to play, what you were going to be doing in the game, because obviously the artwork would actually give you that. So I think that was half of it as well. So you'd actually look at that and say, "Oh, it looks amazing." Even when you played the game, even if it weren't, you were still thinking you were that character on the front of that cover, doing what they were doing. So that was what half of it was.
Well, we did as kids judge a game by its cover.
Exactly. If I had awesome
art, and we knew that we were falling for it every time because we knew the game was going to be nothing like the cover.
I have an example of that.
You got to bring out Knight Rider?
No, sadly not. It's this one here. End Zone. It's an American football game. Again, only £1.99. What a bargain!
Yeah.
What are they worth now, Spacey? Phil asked a lot earlier if it's worth any coin now.
I have no idea. I'm sorry, mate.
I wouldn't have thought they'd be worth massive amounts unless that was a rare one.
But apparently, I think it's probably something to do with Stranger Things. Apparently, a lot of young kids now are trying to buy old video tapes and audio cassettes and things like that. I think they're kind of fascinated with the old physical media. Thanks.
And they never released it, Gazz. They never released the game.
Unbelievable. Why?
They never released the game of that. They actually did. My brother, obviously, his friend, him and a friend of his, they actually started doing because they used to sort of do a bit of like cracking of games, a little bit here and there. And they actually started redoing a few of the sprites in another game and actually put the actual Starfighter in there, and they sort of rejigging things and stuff. But yeah, they never actually did an official Starfighter game.
They
not until much later anyway.
I know a little bit about this because of my old sort of Atari connection, and also because
history time with Space Commander.
So, I'll try not to bore you too much, but you know, I was really into the film The Last Starfighter and the comic book of The Last Starfighter. There was a game in development, and it was going to be released on one of the later Atari consoles. I think it was called like the Atari Family or Atari Computer, something like that. I can't remember. But it was going to be released on this more advanced version of the Atari. And then I think that's the licensing deal expired before the game was ready or something like that. So what they did was there was one game which was going to be on I think it was on the 2600, and it was nothing to do with Last Starfighter. It was going to be released under the name Last Starfighter, but because the license expired, they ended up releasing it under the name, I think it was Solaris or Solaria.
Something like that, I think, yeah.
And then the more advanced console, the one that was like came out quite a few years after the 2600, the game that they developed for that, they did release it, but under a different name. Now, someone on YouTube has got hold of a demo of the actual original version, which still says Last Starfighter in the title and has the music from the film. And
that's cool.
They've compared it to the version that did get released. And it's exactly the same game, but with a completely different name on it.
Right.
I wish I could remember the name of it. If I'd have known we were going to talk about it, I'd have researched it beforehand. But yeah, if you look it up on YouTube, it is on there. And when you see the gameplay, even though it's got a different name, even though it doesn't say Last Starfighter, it's clearly meant to be Last Starfighter. You can see the shape of the enemy ships and the huge battle cruiser at the end. It's exactly off Last Starfighter, but just released under a different name. The other game, like I say, Solaria wasn't really meant to be Last Starfighter in the first place, but this game clearly was. Sorry, TJC.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, and like I say, yes, Gazz, they put a gun star in their game. And then once I got a little bit older myself, and I actually got my head around what that was, I actually got the game. Do you remember the game Spy Hunter?
Mm.
And obviously, if you looked at the car, that was based on, especially with the artwork, basically a Ferrari, really. But because I was more of a Lamborghini guy, I actually changed the car in that and broke into the game, changed the car, and actually put a Countach one in it. Changed it so it looked like a Countach from up down view. So I used to do all stupid things like that, you know. Bit of a nerd even then, I guess. But
I don't even know how you would begin to
that was
something.
fairly straightforward. That was just sprites on the Commodore 64. So you just used to draw them out. And you remember the maths books you used to get at school?
Yeah.
I often used to grab a couple of new ones from school and used to just like draw them out and then turn them into squares. And that was all it was. And you just make them out of squares.
I had
That still sounds like work for me. I would never have put that much effort into a game.
Yeah, I just wanted a Lamborghini in my Spy Hunter, so that was happening. So
I had this book which was it was like how to create your own adventure game for the Commodore 64, something like that. And
cool.
My older brother, he this is one of the few times he and I actually worked together on anything. I had the book and I had worked out what parts of the book I wanted to use to create my game. And as you say, we've got the old maths pages, you know, from the school notebook, and drawn in there what the thing would look like, so you know how many pixels to put into the program and everything. So we sat together one day. He was typing on the keyboard what I was telling him from what I had noted in my book. And we spent ages programming this thing. It was going to be, I thought, the best game ever. And right before we were going to press record and play on the data set to record the game that we had just spent all this time programming on the screen, was a power cut.
Oh, no.
And at that point, closed the book and chucked it.
They did release a bit of software on the Commodore 64 and later on the Amiga called Shoot 'em Up Construction Kit.
Okay.
That basically had a shoot 'em up game which you could change all the sprites in, you could change everything in, you could put music to it and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Even then, you could build your own shoot 'em up. That was really, really good bit of kit. You used to have some right fun with that. You just put all sorts of sort of enemies in there. You can change it for all sorts. So that was a bit of fun.
Creativity in games anymore. I think the last time I ever did anything that required me to be able to use, design a character was in a Nintendo DS. I think they called it DS. And you had the little stylus, and there was a game where you could create your character, and that character would then, go through the whole game as that character. You could put him in whatever costume you wanted, and you're limited only by your imagination and the amount of pixels that you could draw it in, but still good stuff. Obviously, I would, put a little bit of a Sarge spin on things. But,
of course.
Talking of using your imagination, I mentioned this one earlier on, Endzone, American football game. Now, you would think from the cover and the images on the back that this was going to be, a fully animated, very exciting American football game.
Yeah.
When I came to play it, it's just numbers on the screen. It's like you choose your team and you have to choose your players. And I always played as the New York Jets because that was Flash Gordon's team.
Yeah.
And you choose, you have to manage your own money and buy and sell your players. And whatever skills they brought to the team would determine whether you won against certain teams or lost against certain teams. But it was all just numbers on the screen. You had to kind of imagine the game. But, it was still enjoyable in a way. It just wasn't quite the game I was expecting it to be.
So was it more of a manager game, was it? So you actually just had to run the plays and
which is totally not what I thought I was getting at all.
Just to touch on GeForce's comment there that he had the VIC-20.
Oh yeah,
and I bet he was. Are you saying GeForce? You were one of the text adventure people when you used to have to type in, move forward or walk forward or whatever it was, and turn left and That used to be big for the text adventures on that Vic 20 because a friend of mine had one. That was pretty much main games you used to have on it.
Yeah, I did love those text adventures, and then later on, playing games like Monkey Island. Later on, in obviously the graphics improved considerably, but those games where you had to, think about, it's not all just straightforward, simple sword and sorcery games. It's just like you got to think about what you're going to type in order for them to do it, and you have to type it out just right. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything.
So you'd actually get to the point. If you couldn't figure out what the command had to be, you'd be like writing all sorts of things. Move one step forward. Oh, that wouldn't work. Walk forward. No, can't let me do that. And that said, that'll keep saying things like, you can't do that right now. You can't do that right now. And you're thinking, oh, what have I got to type in? You'd be typing all sorts of denominations, these different things until you got it exactly right. Then it'd say, oh, you've now come up to a door. And you think, oh, it just took me 2 hours to move one step. That was just really exact on everything. If I didn't do it right, you had to they used to put instructions to give the gist. But
do you reckon Hans would have got stuck at a door because he'd keep typing in "kick door in"?
Yeah, smash door in.
Smash door in.
You can't do that right now. What? I'm Hans. You can't tell me to do that.
I reckon he would have just kept typing until it went, all right, it's done. You smashed through.
Star Raiders 2, the last Starfighter game that was released. I've just Googled it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was.
He's just Britannic at it.
Yeah.
I think that might be the first time he's ever used Google.
I'm used to using Gaggle, you see.
Gaggle, that'll tell you.
Gaggle, Adam's Gaggle. But
yeah,
Star
Gaggle.
Raiders 2. It was released on the Atari 8-bit family. So I kind of had the name right. Atari 8-bit family, which was one of the later, it was after the 2600. They developed it as a last Starfighter game, but the license expired, so they released it under the name Star Raiders 2. I think Star Raiders 1 had been on the 2600, but this game was more advanced than 2600 could do, so it was released on this Atari 8-bit family. But the game that was released on the 2600 was released under the name, I think it was Solaris or Solaria, something like that.
Right.
Like that, yeah.
So,
like Gazz said, you watch that film because that's one of my favourite films. Not just the fact that was obviously a really good film, but obviously the fact that the sort of community's got in that sort of trailer park, that was obviously the housing estate where we all grew up in. That was that sort of community where we were. Everyone knew everyone. Everyone knew what everyone did. Everyone used to meet up and do everything together. That was that sort of thing. That was what that was like in the 80s where I grew up. So that's part of it for that film. But like you say, you'd watch that game, you think that game looked so cool at the time, and they never released it. That was a really big missed opportunity.
It would have, if they had an arcade game of The Last Starfighter in arcades, there's no way that wouldn't have been the most popular.
That would have been another Star Wars vector graphics game. That would have been another game like you had Star Wars on the Atari after the film. Then you'd have had that. That'd have been like a natural progression. Moving forward, like on that would have been sort of like everyone had been on it. Simple as that, just to defeat it. So yeah, that was a missed opportunity and a half. That
threw money away. Probably saved us a lot of coins, to be honest. Does anyone know which game GeForce Racing 20 is quoting here with "You have died of dysentery"?
Oh, I thought he was commenting.
That'd be basically any sort of text adventure. That would be sort of, you'd probably say you're in a fight in this text game and it said, oh, you're bleeding. By the time you figured out what you had to do to stop yourself bleeding, you'd be dead. Because you'd have to put the exact command in, like wrap bandage round arm or something like that. That'd be something really silly. But if you didn't type it exactly right, that'd just turn and say you have died. That'd be really sort of cut you off and say, right, you got to start again. Thanks for that. Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Apply aloe vera gel.
You
have some.
Sometimes it's so simple. Yeah. Oregon Trail is what I was thinking. Gold Rush it sounds also like it would have, but honestly, anything text-based could have died with dysentery.
I thought it was referencing your trip to America, mate.
Mate, I survived that. I survived. I did not die of it. I survived it. I'm never going to live that down. But the thing is, it's my own fault because I was very vocal about it. So,
well, you did release a video as well.
Yeah.
In the
I'm surprised. I need to change the name to
video.
Mr. Goopy Pants.
Well, you know, you'll always have my sympathy, you know, because of
Yeah, thanks, mate.
one or two medical issues up here on the space station. So,
So
I know what you've been through, mate.
It would have made for a very interesting text-based game.
So, Space Commander, what would you say is your first arcade game that you would have probably played to death, apart from Star Wars?
No, it probably would have just been Star Wars.
Would it just been even just like one that you might play with your friends, or any of the 2-player games later on, or?
No, the only 2-player game that I really used to get into was the later Star Wars, the one where you fly inside the Star Destroyer. So yeah, it was,
right.
You know, it was all about Star Wars, and I'll try and reel it in. I'll try not to get angry about it, but it's like the people who have screwed up Star Wars, they seem to feel like our generation committed some terrible crime and we need to be punished for some reason. It's like, you know, what have we done that makes you want to destroy all of our heroes and retroactively spoil our fun? You know, used to love playing those games, but now it's like they're tainted. Zazel, it's like you were saying on a recent video where, you know, you watched the perfect ending to a movie trilogy, the last scene of Return of the Jedi. And that was one of the most uplifting and wonderful scenes from my childhood.
Yeah.
Now, when you watch it, it's heartbreaking because you know that everything those characters achieved, everything that they have achieved, is undone, and they're all made to look stupid, and they're all killed off in really embarrassing ways. And
I think the biggest tragedy.
What great crime have we committed that we should be punished thusly? Sorry, mate,
like
go ahead.
That's exactly what you say. You think Luke sort of like got to the end, and he's then got angry, defeated his dad, and then thought, "Hang on, I'm not going to turn. There you go. I'm a Jedi like my father before me." The usual line, and then obviously the Emperor tries to kill him, and then his father comes back to the light side.
That
whatever.
is
That is the whole spin. That's it. That's done. So then after that, then what you say with the Luke Skywalker thing, it's the most unsort of like taintable sort of person there is in the film because he won't turn. He gets angry and then saying, "And I'm not going to go down that route," and then he stops himself, and then they make him so he gets depression and sits on a little planet on his own and buries his X-wing in the sea.
Luke Skywalker was able to bring Darth Vader back from the dark side, and yet was still willing to kill Ben Solo for less.
Yeah. Because he had a bad dream. It was
the biggest
was
problem.
The Return of the Jedi. That was the title was referencing was the return of Anakin, the Return of the Jedi. It was his love for his son that brought him back.
Exactly.
That returned the Jedi. You know. Anyway.
Jedi. So the biggest issue, though, the biggest heartbreaking thing is whether or not you even like the prequel trilogy is irrelevant, but it adds to what I'm about to say. If you've got the prequel trilogy, which is still George's vision, and you've got the original trilogy, the fact that he was geared up to be the chosen one to bring balance to the Force, and then succeeds in that, right? Only to then have Palpatine come back and have the absolute just, I guess, disrespect of giving him a voiceover going, you know, do what I couldn't have done and bring balance to the Force. It's like, you did it, mate. You did do it. Disney's ruined it. All right, let's get off Star Wars for a moment. Get back to TJC because you got a question here, TJC.
Go on, then.
And it is, what was y'all's favorite arcade cabinet? Mine was Star Castle, similar to Yar's Revenge. Yeah.
Oh, that's a difficult one. Favorite cabinet. What do you think, Zazel? You got one come to mind?
I do. I've got a couple. So the first one that comes to mind, it's not my favorite, but the first one that came to mind that I had a lot of fun playing, and I had no idea that this was even I've only ever seen it once, and it was a Superman game that also had Captain Marvel in it. So you were flying around as Shazam and Superman. I never played it once, and I never saw it again. But the one that me and my brothers used to always play, no matter if it was there, we went to it, and it was Double Dragon. We would just go ape shit for Double Dragon. It's just probably one of the best 2-player beat 'em up side-scrolling games, in my opinion. Terrible movie, but great arcade game. Loved it.
The cartoon of Double Dragon is brilliant, but the movie, I thought the movie was going to be like a continuation of the cartoon. No, wrong.
I've never seen the cartoon.
If you want to watch a good review about the film, if you go just when you get a chance, obviously, if you go on Jay Bartlett's channel, him and Willie Lowe done a review of it, not just the other week, because they're going through all the movie games. They did Street Fighter this week, just gone. And then I think they did the Mortal Kombat movie before that. So like I say, they got some reviews on it, and that'll open your eyes on some of it. But yeah, I think for me, Adam's right on the right sort of thing there. You had Twin Cobra.
Oh yes,
obviously the helicopter gunships. You had 1942.
Oh yeah,
1941, and I don't know if it was on the arcade. It possibly was, but Sky Shark. Them all shoot 'em ups, which that was just unbelievable. You were like having to look where every single bullet was in the screen, because if they'd float everywhere, and if you actually just scrape one, that was it. That was game over, wasn't it? So that was just a relentless sort of game to try and sit around that to try and get the high scores on. But yeah, I used to love anything shoot 'em ups like that, the earlier games, and obviously Defender, because that was like quite cool.
I think one of the most awesome cabinets I ever saw in an arcade was Tron.
Oh, right, Tron, the light cycles, yeah,
that was epic. I mean, the movie was great. It was made by Steve Lisberger, and he got it released through Disney. Now, this is 80s Disney, before the company was taken over by arseholes. So, yeah. In the film, all the characters are like generated inside the computer, so they're all glowing with electricity and power. And the cabinet would do that. Once you put your money in the slot, the joystick was lit from within. It would light up, and all around the cabinet would light up. It was that immersive experience, like you were in the game. Why can't Disney get this right?
I don't know, Spacey. I don't know, but I can see that you're passionate about it.
That's an amazing cabinet, an amazing game. The trouble is, I think there was only like in TJ's neck of the woods, Yarmouth. I think there was only one Tron game in the whole of the seafront, and there was always.
That's a painful thing as well, because growing up, you're near a seaside resort, so basically you'd only have to literally go on a bus, which, to case in point, you used to be able to get a return bus from where I live to where the seafront was and back for 50 pence. You used to get a 50p return ticket.
Yeah,
which
return.
was like next to nothing really, and that used to get you up to Yarmouth. You'd go up the seafront, you'd go down all the arcades, and like I say, that all majority of it would be games. So you'd have every game you could possibly think of. You go in there and you play games with your mates, all have a good laugh and stuff, and then you'd get back on the bus with your ticket that you got, return early, and then go home again. That was your day out. You know, it was just like pretty good. But now the seafront now is obviously still the same, as in the arcades are still there, but the majority of them now are penny pushers and gambling machines and you know silly things like that now, whereas the gaming part of it now just aren't there anymore. But obviously a lot of these places have opened up with the retro arcades and stuff like that, with the old games in and stuff, so you have got some place you can still go if you want to do that. Actually, Jace went last weekend on his birthday. He had a bit of a day out on there.
Good man.
So JaceCon was a great event. Now we're getting up onto nearly up to the 1.5 hour mark, and what I want to finish out on, we've talked a lot about some history. We've talked a lot about some negative experiences, but let's finish on a positive. And I want to talk about which game has had a profound positive experience in your life. For instance, for me, I've loved video games for as long as I can remember, but the one game that I immersed myself in, I love this game. It is the joy in my life, and that would be Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2. When those games came out, I was absolutely just encapsulated in the world of Red Dead Redemption, and it took up all my spare time. I was living in this universe. It was just that immersive. It was that enjoyable for me. It was right in my wheelhouse. And then they had Red Dead Online for Red Dead Redemption 2, where now you can customize your characters, you can form a posse, and you can live in that world. And for me, that was for years was the game that would bring me the most joy and fill me with high spirits and positivity, even if you get a few toxic players jump on in. But is there any game that you think back on and you think that's true joy and something that you look back on fondly, or even currently are playing?
I'll tell you one little story that I do look back on fondly. Now that's not quite so. That's not like you say. It's not as new as Red Dead. You remember the original Xbox?
Yep.
When they released the disc for the Xbox Live, so you could actually play online. Bearing in mind, the fastest broadband I could get when it first came through was half meg speed.
Right.
512, which was at the time you think, God, it's got a rocket ship. That never need to get faster than that, but that was obviously half meg speed. So you got the disc that then upgraded your software in your Xbox and give you Xbox Live so you could play online. But in the UK, we were sort of stiffed a bit because they give you the game with it, which was MotoGP motorbike racing, but demo.
Okay.
So you only had a restricted amount of motorbikes and like riders. But then what you used to do, there you go. That what you used to do was, if you played someone who had the game in America, they had the full game. So
right.
What they used to do is they used to invite you onto their game in tracks you didn't have on your demo. Then you had the tracks.
Oh, nice.
So that used to be a get round. So what I did was, there was this guy when he first started playing it. I can't remember his name for the life of me now. I think he's still on my friends list on the Xbox. I'm pretty sure he is. But we just added sort of thing, just joined his game, and then we just got chatting and stuff. And then I was just playing with him until the early hours in the morning one night, because that was obviously such a new thing, playing online with people all over the world sort of thing on an Xbox in your house. So I was playing on it, and then he put me in all these games and all the tracks that I hadn't unlocked. By the time I'd finished that night, I had the full game.
Oh, that's so cool.
I could play on all the tracks and have all the different riders and everything for the rest of the time. But yeah, they even had the leaderboards, and I think he was actually something like number 2 in the world.
Wow.
Huh.
He was actually in the leaderboard at the time. He was the second best in the world on the sort of like scored and times and all that sort of stuff. Can't remember what his name was for life. I'll have to look that up. But that was just such a new thing at the time, and you think you're not going to get that again to that degree, are you? You're not going to think you're going to go, oh yeah, it's going to get faster and faster now. But that was actually went from nothing, where you never had that, to, oh, you can play online, you can play something in America. You know, that was just such
the
a
very
big jump.
definition of community there.
Yeah,
so
that
cool.
was brilliant. And he just said, yeah, if we race this track now, then you'll have all the tracks, you'll have all the riders. And I had the full game with a demo disc. So it was a bit of a get round. So that was brilliant. You know, it was really good. But yeah,
that is brilliant.
Fun.
What about you, Spacey? Have you got one that comes to mind?
Yeah, I think the gaming experience for me growing up, because of it was before you would go online and play with people, as TJC was saying, anywhere in the world. Basically, you were playing at home by yourself or at the arcade, and most of the games were single player. or maybe you'd have a friend over and play a 2-player game or something like that. And also the games themselves, they were designed to be able to be completed within a few hours because of when they're on a cassette tape. I'm not saying anything bad about tape because I love my tapes, but you can't, there's no way of saving the game. So whereas games nowadays are designed so that you can play the same game for like weeks or months or whatever, build a campaign. Those games, they were more like a puzzle. It was like you had to figure out the gameplay, figure out the puzzle, and complete it within a few hours. And then, go back the next time, load it up again, play it again, try and improve your score. It was more like puzzle play.
Yeah.
And so there are, in terms of, like you say, Red Dead Redemption, you felt like you were in that world. But Star Wars is the obvious one, and we've mentioned the Empire Strikes Back on the Atari, the Star Wars on the Commodore, the various arcade games. So I don't want to, instead of belaboring that point, which we've already kind of covered, some of the other games that were really kind of immersive in that way would be Transformers and Ghostbusters. And the Tomcat F-14 one I mentioned earlier, those ones, that you really feel like you were in that world and part of that adventure. There is a game that I don't have here. It must still be at my parents' place down on planet Earth. There was a game called Arctic Fox, and this was a tank game, right? And you're out in the wilderness in the tundra, driving around, and you've got you're inside a tank, and you've got a main screen where you're looking out into the world, and then below that you've got a smaller screen, which is kind of used as like a little radar. All what you can do is you can choose different types of missile to fire, and you can select a missile with a camera in the nose, and you can launch this not necessarily as a way of attacking the enemy, but you can use it to scout ahead. And on the little screen under your main screen, you will see what the camera sees. And it was quite a difficult game because of the landscape you were playing on was so vast. You could be driving around for ages before you find any enemy tanks. And then when you find them, there's too many of them. You're outnumbered. So it was a very difficult game to play. But after school, I had a friend who would come around and we would play it. Although it was a single-player game, we would both sit at the keyboard and we would play it together, sort of thing. And we'd one of us would be like steering the tank, the other one would be trying to keep note of where the enemy emplacements were that we had already detected. But this one particular day, we were getting absolutely nowhere. So we decided to launch one of these rockets with a camera in the nose. And the enemy tanks, they were kind of on the screen as like vector graphics, kind of a boxy shape with a single antenna, tall antenna sticking out the top. So we launched the rocket with the camera in, and we're flying around, steering the rocket and looking at the small screen underneath the main screen. We were both concentrating on the small screen, trying to see what this rocket was showing us. Cruising around for ages, can't see anything, so we're turning it further and further left, further and further right, steering it round and round and round. And eventually, after quite some time, and you've only got so much time before the rocket runs out of fuel, we see a dot on the horizon. Must be a tank, right? Let's go for it. So we steer the rocket towards the tank, and we're hurtling towards it, and it's getting closer and closer. And I noticed something weird. This tank did not have a single aerial like the others. It had two aerials, two antennae. And I thought to myself, that looks like the tank on the front of the box, on the front of the game. At that point, me and my mate looked up from the small screen up to the main screen, coming right towards us. Game over, but it was such a laugh. We cracked up laughing. Even though it was game over, we had lost. We'd blown ourselves up. It was just such a funny occasion. We didn't keep track of how far around we had turned the rocket until it was back. That was just a great fun moment. Even though it was the end of the game, it was just a great fun moment from being a kid and playing those old 8-bit games. Good times.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be a future stream. That one, no Space Command. I'm gonna have to see if I can reenact that. I'm sure I'll manage.
Alrighty, so we're at the 1:30 mark. TJC, thank you so much for jumping on and hanging out with us. It's always a pleasure hanging out with you. What have you got coming up that we can tune into? If you haven't already, please, guys, jump on and subscribe to TJC. His link is in the description. Is on his way to 100 subscribers. Let's get him there soon. But yeah, what have you got coming up, bud?
I ain't got anything fixed at the minute. I try to do it day to day to see what I actually fancy playing, really. I do on Monday night, obviously, be Gears of War 2 again.
Oh, yes, good.
I was meant to be doing a Ghost Recon sort of like game last weekend, but obviously that got cancelled due to various reasons. But I may try and set one of them up again. But we'll have to see whose availability is about and then see what we can do.
Yeah, unfortunately, with different time zones, we're a group of mates from all over the globe, and it's very difficult to get everybody in on the one time zone.
Well, as Gazz and sort of Hans will tell you, we were playing, I think, one night on Ghost Recon.
Yeah,
and you just don't realise the time because, like I say, you're having such a laugh, and you're playing through this game, and they just turned and said, God, do you realise what the time is? And that was something like, to them, that was sort of like tea time.
Right.
Just like, do you realise what time it is here? And I was like, cool, it's getting a bit late here. That's it. Yeah. He said, oh, it's getting a bit late here. It's like, about 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, yeah, 6 o'clock in the morning here. And I just like, you've been playing all night. Well, yeah, I ain't been anywhere else, have I? Yeah, been... You know, that was just like, because we were just having such a laugh. You lose track of time, and then he was just saying, he said, "At 6 a.m. in the morning." I said, "Yeah, I ain't got to go to work in the morning. That'd be right."
Yeah,
I said, "Well, I'll call it a night now," and then obviously we got off. So, and then I think literally, just so I was then sort of like thinking, well, I'll just go out and off to sleep. I think that's when Jace walked through and said, "Daddy, are we getting up now?" Oh man.
Right, you've got an invitation there from Gazz. He's off all next week. If you want to play, let him know. Hit him up. I want to thank
you a message.
I want to thank everybody in the chat that showed up for TJC. Super appreciate it. Thanks again for Frostbite G.I. Joe Repro for the $10 super chat earlier. Thank you to all the channel members. If you are a channel member like Gazz and David, then if you do decide to become a member, then you will have an opportunity to join the Members Games Nights. And the purpose of the Members Games Night didn't start off this way, but the purpose of the Members Games Night now is to knock Space Commander off the top spot. He wins everything. So we need challenges. If you want to join up and become a member of the Slaughterhouse, help support the channel, and also help bring Space Commander down to earth a little.
And if you get to be really lucky, you get the bonus prize of being on my team, and I never answer anything.
I don't know. You've helped me out on occasion, mate, but it is entirely unintentional.
Yeah. That's just entirely unintentional. You just know everything. You're just like the other version of Pericles.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't set out to know everything, but you know, it's. But at least you know, at least you know, a good-natured player. You know, it's not like I'm you know, rubbing anyone's face in it or anything. All right, I'll stop there. I don't want to go into a sermon, you know.
All right, well, on that note, lads, it was great hanging out. I'm going to play the classic Space Commander. I don't know which one. I wonder if it's the funeral one. I'm not sure. But let's play it anyway. Maybe if it's the funeral one, do I keep playing it or should I move to the other one?
Whatever feels most natural, mate. It's fine.
All righty. Well, I'll see you on the next incoming transmission. Full force.
Thanks for tuning in.
We are assembled here today to pay final respects to our honored dead.
And we will not debate his profound wisdom at these proceedings. Of my friend, I can only say this. Of all the souls I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human. Orders. Hup.
Base Commander. 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 Base Commander.
They say the brightest lights burn out the fastest. But if that were true, we would have lost Space Commander years ago. And I know Space Commander's looking down at us from his space station in the sky. Everyone here better off for have known him, having him in their life. What I wouldn't give for just one more incoming transmission from the Space Commander. Rest well, buddy. You deserve it.
Space Commander, we'll never forget you, buddy. Space Commander.
How do you say goodbye to a friend who is out of this world? How do you show how much your good friend actually means to you? I don't know if there's enough words in this world that can truly explain how much Space Commander means to all of us. Will always be remembered.
Space Commander was the best of us all. His smile, his laugh, his jokes that didn't land, but he landed in all our hearts. And he did it with full force.